Okay, so Twitch chat wants me to talk about improving at Splatoon and shit. So I'm like a week late to this conversation, but I guess we're just gonna do it anyway. I don't really have a script or anything. I don't know how much I want to input, and again, I'm like a week late to the convo. The YouTube bot, I'm sure, will be even later. So, I guess this started today, because I saw. I mean, I was talking about this stuff privately. But I saw Jared make a post saying Splatoon is the only comp game where I've seen people actively avoid practice because they don't want to lose too many games, which doesn't, which makes them think they aren't learning anything, which just doesn't make sense to me. And I quote retweeted that post, and I said, I feel like our top level and maybe scene as a whole is bad at learning from one-sided games and tries to avoid them. Unless you are literally 100-0 KOing every single match, there's stuff to learn from. The inability to do so speaks to an inability to properly review matches more than anything else. So I guess we can start with that. Now, alright. This is always one of those conversations where if I'm not really careful what I'm saying, it's going to be very easily misinterpreted, so that's going to be fun today. So let me get this obvious disclaimer out of the bat, right? If you want to play comp just to, like, play at a certain level or have fun with your friends or, like, you don't care about, like, you know, beating Japan one day and being the best team in the world, right? Then, like, that's fine, you know. You do you. Comp is a very malleable experience, and, like, nobody is getting paid for this shit, so play it how you want to do it. That's totally fine. But I do think there is a large portion of the player base who's playing to, like, try to be the best team in the world and shit, and, like, hopefully try to win. I'd, like, assume that includes most of our top level, because they've already made it this far, so I'd be really surprised if we're not focused on that at this point. So, I think that this scene, in general, has a big focus on playing matches near your level, because they're generally more fun. Which I get, and I do feel like, you know, the majority of the time you're playing the game, you should be playing, you know, with and against people that you are comfortable with. Okay, my dog wants to go outside, so I'm pausing this discussion. 1 second, she's barking at me. Okay. Anyway. Sorry, where were we? So, I see this a lot where I'll see our best teams often talk about, like, oh, we play the games and, like, there's only these few teams that we play against where we do good into, or we'll fight Japan, like PXG will fight Japan for the first time in a while and they'll go, oh my god, like this is just like a whole different environment of scrims, like, and we're not prepared for this, or blah 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 blah. They're not exactly wrong, but it's like, okay, if you play a scrim and you win 9 games out of 10 and, like, only half of those are 100-0 knockouts, and we can't look at that scrim and find a way to get better, then I think that is very much an individual problem. Now, is it easier to improve if you're playing a scrim where you, like, lose more often? Yes, obviously. But, you know, if you're going to get to, like, the top level of the Western scene, then at some point every team who gets to this point has to accept the reality that, like, shit, there's nobody better we can play 90% of the time. We can only get better from playing people worse than we are. If, like, FT Win has gone there and noticed that, Kraken Paradise has gone there and noticed that, Starburst has gone there, like, every single team to reach that point. That's probably like PXG right now, maybe it was Metro a bit ago. Like, every team that gets there has to accept that reality, that eventually you will get good enough to the point where any combination of players you play against in the Western scene will be worse than you. And if you want to get better, to beat Japan, you have to figure out how to maximize getting better from those experiences. And it's like, again, obviously Japan will have a better experience getting better, they will have more they can do, but it's like, if you're committing to trying to beat them, which I hope we all are, then, like, you're going to have to learn how to get more out of that. So subsequently, it is helpful in general, because in general, if you're a top team, or even if you're a lower level team or whatever, you are going to find some scrims where you stomp the other team, or you will find some scrims where you get stomped. Trying to have this magical world where all your scrims are dead even in the middle games is just not feasible. And I believe there's a big advantage to players who can take those scrims that are less balanced and, like, figure out how to get more out of them. I feel like maximizing your practice time is very important in this game to getting better at the game. Does that make sense? Yeah? And I feel like this is a big deal as well when we fight Japan and our teams go against Japan, right? These, like, few interactions where we do actually get to fight is another case where I feel like people don't really get a whole lot out of it. So, let's take Moonlight, for instance, right? Because I obviously made sure they got a lot out of it, because I'm their coach. That's my job. I'd not be doing my job otherwise, right? We spent, time prepping for this. We played the tournament, and then we reviewed all the games. So we played, we watched back, and we VOD reviewed, and we made sure that we understood exactly what lessons we needed to learn, exactly what they did, what stuff we could replicate, what stuff we shouldn't be going for, etc. We also spent time looking over other people's sets. I, as a coach, POV, but also in an attempt to get better as a player, watched teams that were not my own, and I analyzed, and I went over even the smallest things. I have, like, a private 16-minute ramble going over my thoughts on why PXG picking Splattershot, Splattershot or Splash instead of Splattershot Pro, what's it called? Picking either of those weapons, how, it affected their game plan, their ability to play, and, how it changed them and that sort of thing. That small topic of just, switching from one support gun to another got, a lot of mileage out of, the things I could say about it, right? And that's the kind of skill that I feel is important, where it's okay, you need to be able to look at, small, very insignificant decisions. It could be a comp thing. It could also be just looking at the opening and neutral and understanding every little bit about what's going on. Why their players are positioned a specific way, what their plan is, what our plan is, why things went wrong in the way they did. Right? And stuff like that, and being able to learn all of that properly. And it's that kind of area where our players really lack, especially at a top level where you have to. There have been, I have asked, I don't know, maybe 20 top players if they've VOD reviewed before. Maybe 20, 25 total, somewhere around that number. And more than half of them is no. And, that in itself, I feel is a bit of a problem. And I know if I go lower down, the answer's probably going to be worse. So, I feel like a lot of our issue is we have, opportunities to learn. That's what scrims are, tournaments, etc., everything. There's an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to get better at the game. And I feel that our scene is bad at maximizing those opportunities unless if they are even. Every team that dominates? Yeah, of course. Every team that's managed to get good enough to beat everyone else has understood that that is a concept. But if all of us understood that that's an important concept to understand, then our top level would probably improve more. That's kind of what I want to hopefully start happening. What happened to Starburst? Some of them just don't play the game anymore. When's the last time you've seen Bagel play comp? There you go. That happens. Teams move on. Anyway, so that's enough for point one, right? So I then went on to talk a little bit about 8s. I said that, I think 8s is a very good individual practice form that works for our scene. It does not teach certain things that longer practice sessions with the same group does, especially for pickups allowing comp testing or new playstyles. I don't think it'll happen. I mean, I don't know if it'll happen either, but I don't think burying our head in the sand and going, we'll never be better than Japan is going to do anything either. So, I'm going to talk as if there's a small possibility that it could actually happen, and how to maximize that, how to maximize that chance of that happening. I'm fully aware that it's incredibly unlikely, but, again, I hope we're not here at this level of play to give up and just bury our heads in the sand. Because, you've already made it this far, so, come on, let's try to go a little further. That's, the whole point. So, I saw, a bit of talk about how Japan does solo. I already see it in my chat right now, and people going, we need to do more solo, etc., right? And I don't think that's necessarily wrong, that, solo queue would help us. But I think the big problem in this discussion is we cannot pretend that solo queue in the Western scene is equivalent to solo queue in Japan. The queue times are longer, it is tough to find games, there is regional matchmaking. It's, not the same thing. We do have players who grind JP solo queue. We have players who do very well in JP solo queue, and those players tend to be some of our better players mechanically. You can look to, Gray or Jared getting, 3,500, or Q getting 3,500, or Jordan, even Jordan's NA solo queue. Obviously, I know NA solo queue is different, but, still past a certain point, BXP is still high. You still have to win a huge amount of your games, and, you're gonna have to have a certain amount of skills to be able to do that. But it's also not going to be the same value that they're doing. I think that 8s is a very clever solution to this problem, because it seeks to create a solo-like environment that can get you games faster, that can still have, comps you need to learn from, that kind of thing. It's very much a hybrid of solo and competitive play. 8s is a format, for those who don't know, just to get that right out of the bat, 8s is a format where you play with and against different people, and you kind of rotate the teams but keep some of the roles the same. So every time a BO3 changes, it's going to swap the teams around a little bit, and it's going to be a bit different. So, like, that kind of thing is the whole gist of the matter, right? I think it's a clever solution. I actually quite like 8s, even though I'm going to critique it a bunch in a second, right? I think that it's a good idea because it helps emphasize individual practice, and it works better for a lower player population, because that's the main thing about 8s that makes them work. 8s are good for lower player populations. In this case, our top level scene isn't very large. Even if I'm being as generous as possible as to, like, who to classify in top level, we have maybe 50 people, right? Like, that's honestly just something that I think we can talk about there. So, when we, when we look at 8s as a, like, format or anything, it has its big advantages in our scene. I think that's important. However, there's also, like, disadvantages to 8s as a style of play. Mainly, that 8s should not be replacing scrim practice in any sort of way, shape, or form. 8s should not be something people do over scrimming with people against other people. And I'll be talking about scrims in a second, but, like, my big issue is that 8s, for the most part, has replaced pickup scrims. Whenever people are on, and they don't have their group of people they're comfortable with, or their team, they just ping for 8s, and just play 8s. And it's almost impossible to find otherwise, unless if, again, you're already with some kind of pre-established group that has most of the people already comfortable with each other. And I think that is possibly the most negative development we've had in recent times. Because now, we have our top-level teams that aren't finding as many scrims, and they're also mostly scrimming when they are scrimming, they're scrimming against the same people. So now our top level, which already has a problem of not playing a lot of scrims and not getting a lot of varied practice, is getting less varied team practice than we were already getting before. Why? Well, I don't know. Maybe some people just don't want to lose. Like, I saw that talked about a bit in the, you know, top level 8 server that I'm in, of like, oh, I don't want to scrim. I think it was Milky Way. Like, I don't want to scrim Milky Way because I know we're going to lose every game. And, like, that line of logic is, like, annoying as fuck in its own right. I think that's, like, kind of obvious. I think even the people saying that know that that line of logic is poorly, right? But it's like, I feel like 8s has become this safe alternative where, because the teams rotate all the time, you know that you're going to get balanced matches as long as, you know, all the people queuing for 8s are in a relatively similar skill level. So, because of that, I feel like we've gotten a bit more comfortable just playing 8s rather than doing scrims or, like, other top-level matches where there's a high possibility that we'll start losing some of those games. And I feel like that is, again, a bad thing. The other thing that I think it's bad for is comp experimentation. So, if you're looking at the background footage here, this is just a random 8s lobby, you might be noticing that there's a fucking Dapple Dooley in the lobby, and this is Omega playing Dapple Dooley for fun. I don't really know why. I think it's for a video or something. I have no idea why. But Omega's playing Dapple Dooley in this lobby, as you might have noticed. And Dapple Dooley is a very strong weapon that is extremely under-repped. The only, like, top-level Dapple player I'm aware of that, like, actually plays the weapon in tournament is Isabel on new meta, right? A player that I don't see do practice too much, you know, outside of their own group. But, you know, we see them in their tournament, they play this weapon, and it's very good. Right? Also, yeah, none of the, I don't know how to tell you guys this, but none of the JP teams in SWS were low level. They were all stacked. Even the weakest teams were kind of stacked. Which is a factor here, but we'll get into that later, I guess. So, anyway, right. So we played a Dapple, and I got to play with a Dapple, and I got to play against a Dapple. And Dapple is a pretty strong weapon that's very under-repped, and it plays very differently than a lot of other weapons. And so, I, personally, had a lot of fun with it. And it also felt like I struggled, not because of a, you know, mechanical issue or anything, but I started to struggle because I was being put in matches where, in the moment, at the speed the game was being played at, I struggled to understand what the right thing to do was at the time, because there was a change to the environment that, you know, I wasn't ready for. I didn't have experience against that. And that thing that I just talked about is what happens when we fight Japan. Our teams fight against these compositions and playstyles and groups that they don't have experience against, and because they lack experience, it's easier to get thrown off and make subtle, smaller differences in decision-making that can lead to losses. That's what happened to a lot of our teams. I've seen people talk about, like, why was our top level stronger against Japan before? And I think, like, our strongest top level against Japan that we've had is, like, Starburst in 2022, or 2021, back when the Area Cup World Championships were a thing. And the reason they were strongest, outside of being a really good team, obviously, is because there were often a lot of times where they fought Japan. They would play Area Cups, or they would occasionally get scrims, and more often than not, there was, like, an Area Cup World Championship every few months where they would fight these teams. And so what started happening is the people they were fighting against were less unfamiliar, they started to understand what they were going against, and they started to get better because of it. But for most of our teams in SWS, this was either the literal first time they had ever fought Japan ever, or it had been like maybe a year or more since they fought Japan. And then they're also fighting Japan that's at a more stacked level than, like, they have ever played against before. Because, like, the JP teams in this event are even more stacked than the ones we had in, like, Area Cup World Champs. There's just more of them, right? Okay, I'm reading up on Cookie's message real quick. As the two best teams, PXG and JP. JP played more patient and controlled more space than the enemy team. JP took fights in more advantage spots and took better fights. I mean, yeah, typically they take better fights. This isn't really an analysis of, like, the sets themselves, but maybe I'll get into that when I'm done talking about the thread. So, I'll get into that in a little bit. Alright. Let me get back to the thing I was talking about, right? So, basically what I was saying is that at a, you know, that level of unfamiliarity, playing, like, with or against something like that was really nice. However, what happened with the 8th session is I played with this Dapple sword comp. It was really fast. I felt unfamiliar with it. And then we played 3 games and the team swapped, and then I went back to playing normal stuff for another set. And so I didn't actually really get to learn very much. I never really got to, you know, figure out how to play around this weapon or play around this in a better way and see that development, because the second that started happening, the teams rotated, and now we're just playing something else. And that is exactly, like, why 8s can't replace these kind of formats, because that's the problem at some point. You know, you have to, like, there is some development that you only get from playing with and against the same people multiple times over the course of a longer session, and that kind of improvement is important. And if we're not willing to do that, that's an issue. And this goes furthermore to just not playing in scrims. And I think this is my biggest critique of top players in general. And this is not what, you know, my take on misinterpreted is, like, top players not playing, like, outside of the top level sphere or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about, just to make it clear, right? That's a whole other discussion. What I mean is that even in these spheres, in these circles of top players playing with and against each other, I know there are certain groups of players who only play with people they're familiar with when they do scrims. It is very rare to see some top players enter tournaments or play pickups with certain other players, even though they are in the same servers, in the same spheres, and the same everything. It is exceptionally rare to see that even happen. And I think that, like, one, I think that's an issue because larger scene-wise, if they see, like, top players lose early in a tournament, like, it'll be, like, a thing where everyone talks about it, so it's kind of hard to, like, play a tournament casually as a top player, because, like, no matter who you're playing with, they're going to be talked about just because you're playing in the event, which I get. But at the same time, it's like, how cool would it be if our top players would, like, enter in these different groups? Like, oh, okay, PXG can't play a tournament, and, like, I don't know, Hypernova can't play a tournament. I'm just spitballing random teams, right? I don't have a script here. So what if these players played with each other, and they played, like, some really weird comp? Like, how well would, like, an S-Blast Inkbrush comp do or something that we don't normally play with? Like, if they played that comp and had to try to make it work in a tournament just to get, like, experience playing with this, like, different, like, playstyle or whatever, right? Or even if you have the same group, just playing something different. Like, just, I don't know, what if PXG played a tournament, but they played, like, some different comp? Like, I saw Gray playing Mini sometime. What if they did, like, some mini composition instead of their usual thing for a tournament, just to test it out, right? The point being, like, just playing in environments that are less comfortable. This is also, like, a team exercise I like to do sometimes. I did this with Last Resort, where if we're playing in a scrim and we get too comfortable with what we're doing, I'd recommend that everyone plays each other's weapons. like, run the same comp, but just put themselves in the position of, like, a different player on that comp. So that suddenly your, like, mentality is that of, like, the pencil player or that of the frontline player or whatever, and you have to, like, try and understand what that player is seeing or doing. So I feel, you know, on some scale, there's, like, many different ways you can do this, but I think the idea of, like, varying practice to the point where you are getting different experiences. The whole point is to create, like, situations where, as a player, you are uncomfortable. That is the entire point, is that these players are put in more situations where they don't know what to do to win, or they don't know what to expect, and they have to play over the course of an hour or 2 hours and figure it out, or suffer losing in a scrim for 2 hours. And I think that is, like, very helpful for improvement in that kind of deal. But yeah, like, rotating the shot caller was another thing we do. And again, the whole point was just, if I'm forced to play this different role, if I'm forced to, like, play in this different mindset where my, you know, my default way of playing the game to win doesn't work, and I have to figure it out, then I will have a better understanding. Because the point isn't that, you know, like, PXG will play a tournament and then suddenly use this fucking mini-comp or suddenly swap their pen player around. The idea is they could go, oh, okay, they fight a team that uses, like, maybe it's a fucking Dapple comp or something, I don't know, and then rather than being caught off guard by it, can actually have experience playing with a Dapple, or playing a Dapple, and understanding, okay, this is what this weapon wants and that kind of deal, on a, you know, fundamentally deeper level, right? And Jared brings up a good point with, like, the mindsets thing, which is true, obviously. There are, like, many different players that are good at winning at top level, but play the game in a very specific way to them that, like, makes them really good, and don't force themselves into experiences where they have to play the game differently to win. Like, some players are very fight-heavy, some players are very pain-heavy, some players like to play around shielding or AoE or whatever the fuck, and, like, understand that that's best. And, you know, when it's a SWS or something, then yeah, obviously, play in the best environment you can. But you should also have experience playing where you cannot do that to win, purely because it will mess with you. And, like, the whole point of, like, whatever theoretical scrim experience you can come up with here, because you could come up with a whole bunch of stuff, but again, the whole point is that it should be unfamiliar, and it should be uncomfortable, and it should be forcing you to think about what you're doing, and changing that, and making it different. And it doesn't really matter how you do it, it's just practicing being in that environment where it feels more difficult to play. Will make you better at the game. Will broaden your understanding of what you can actually do. Okay. So, my main note here, outside of the whole comfort factor, is that I think our top level overdoes 8s. I think that 8 is a good factor. I think it is a good way of playing the game. I think it is helpful in moderation. 8 should not be the thing you're doing 90% of your practice sessions. It should be maybe half of them, like maximum, ideally. I think pickup scrims or solo queue or entering tournaments or whatever needs to be a different portion of that practice. And I feel like it is a problem that we are, like, doing this much of one way of playing the game. And again, even outside of, like, the methods of playing the game, I feel like players are too comfortable playing stuff that they already know. And I would like to see that change. Okay. Understand that was a long ramble here, so let me catch up. Does anyone have any questions about what I'm talking about? Let me catch up with chat real quick and see if we're, like, all on the same page, right? Is there anything I said that's confusion? And then Jared, since you're here, if there's anything you want to add to all this. Yeah. I would like to cover that. I'll give it a second for things to fly in and chat, and hopefully I'll, like, be able to talk about it. The comps look similar to each other? Yeah, the comps look similar to each other because we're playing 8s, and that's the whole point of 8s, is that the comps are similar to each other. Like, 8s feels weird if they're not similar to each other. The whole point is you have people on the same roles, right? You have always are going to have one support guy, one pen guy, and 2 aggros, and you can change what those weapons are, but the overall comp structure doesn't really change that much. And, like, that's fine sometimes, but not all the time. More flexibility in weapon pools? Not exactly. No. I'm not saying that, like, when you get to actual tournament day, you're gonna bring out a pocket Dapple Dually or something. My point isn't that you play these weapons because you're gonna play them in a tournament. My point is you should have an understanding of what other people are thinking when they play in a tournament. You should be able to see a weird comp, and instead of going, oh man, their comp's so weird, we're just getting thrown off by it, we're just losing because they play weird or whatever. You should go, oh, okay, they're playing like a fucking Dapple comp. I know how Dapple plays. I got it. This is what we do to win, right? Because that was something people talked about, is like when they lose to something, it's always easy to go, oh, that's like unconventional, we don't know how to deal with it. Then play it. You're good at the game, go play it. Go pick their comp if you don't understand how it plays. Or if you lost to it, go pick the weird thing that they're playing and figure it out. Because, like, there's no excuse I hate more in tournaments than the other comp is weird. And I'm not saying it's, like, a problem to have a comp you struggle with matchup-wise. Like, Moonlight is victim to that with, like, dealing with Hypernova's comp. They used to not have, like, weapons that dealt with their playstyle weird, but then, like, that's a different thing than their comp is just weird. It's like, no, their comp clearly is good at something. It exploits our comp. We need to, you know, figure out how to adapt to deal with that difference. The excuse is never, oh, they just play weird, and we're going to play other teams, and they're never going to use this stuff, so we don't have to worry about it. It's hard to be flexible in Esther. Yeah, like, you should still primarily focus one weapon. My point is just talking about, like, how to get better in environments where you feel you're rolling. I also just feel like people are afraid to, like, spec into comps that are weird in general, though. Like, I feel like people are afraid to practice comps that look weird on paper. I feel like that is also a thing. But it's like, Japan will pick weird stuff. Like, do you see what happened in SWS Grands when they fought Leader Coolerless? They were like, oh, okay, we're gonna pick fucking triple support, and we're gonna spam specials at the Leader Coolerless team and win that way. And, like, that's what they did. They picked Rapid, V-Dread, Splash, and, like, what was the other one? And a Zimmy. Right? You'd never see that fucking composition. But the comp made sense for counterpicking Coolerless E-Leader specifically, and they had experience against E-Leader. None of those players were caught off by the weird E-Leader comp, or caught off playing this weird triple support thing. Like, they all knew how to do it. They weren't thrown off guard. If our teams dealt with that, they would be thrown off guard. Almost none of them would actually know how to deal with it, I feel. It's better to go to your best weapon or something you're decent at, but is a bit better. I mean, here's how I see it, right? It's better in this game to play a very limited weapon pool of similar options. If you feel your weapon pool is in a lot of situations where you're forced to swap off that weapon, why are you playing that weapon anyway? If your weapon is in such a bad spot that you can't even play it most of the time, then it probably isn't even worth playing. Like, if I played a weapon where I felt obligated to swap all the time, I'd just stop playing that weapon. I'd just play to whatever the fuck I'm swapping to. It's like, why not just invest in that? That's what I'm going to play anyway. Because it's fun? Okay, then great. Play for fun. That's fine. And again, like I said at the start, if you're playing for a different goal that isn't to be the best team in the world, then, like, you know, go for it. But this discussion is for people who want to be the best team in the world. It's like, I'm talking about how to more efficiently reach that goal in the situation and circumstances that we are in. Some top players don't like losing, and they don't care as much. They just want to hop on and expect to improve, and there's not a whole lot of critical thinking. Yeah, and I would very much like that mentality to change. And I understand for some people they don't care enough, but then, like, okay, then I'm not really, like, I don't know, that's just kind of boring to me. Like, getting better at the game is what's fun to me. If we're not playing with that goal in mind, then I would not be playing the game. It's just not fun. What should I play when I go 10 and I get countered by double sword? I don't know. You figure that out. Okay, that comes across sarcastic. My point is, there's no one answer. And, like, furthermore, you shouldn't be getting me to point out an answer. You can ask for, like, input on that kind of thing, but I don't want you to go, like, asking for an answer. You as the 10th player should find that answer. What do you like? What works for you for countering them? What helps you deal with them? Right? And if you don't know, then try shit. Whatever idea that comes first to your head, whatever weapon you want to try with it, just go for it. Pick it, like, find someone that plays the weapon and pick it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then try something else. If you feel you need to swap off tent, then try swapping off tent. If you want to stay tent, then stay tent. You swap the machine. There you go. Right? I'm never going to tell you that. But, like, if that works for you, then great. And then if later down the line it doesn't work for you and you change it, then great. Like, when Shadow plays tent, I coach him and I'll give him suggestions, but it's up to him. He can do whatever the hell he wants, right? If he told me I absolutely won't play at 10 into this comp, I'm going to play Zimmy Splatling, because that's what he likes playing, then, like, fuck it, that's up to him, right? Got called crazy for fighting teams that are strong with me. I mean, I feel like the scene has, like, a lot of... Especially lower down, I see this discussion. The scene makes it very easy to avoid playing better players than you. If you want to as a comp player, you almost never really have to. You can always just find some skill-capped event or something like that. And, like, again, if you don't want to, then, like, that's fine. You know, you do you. But if you're playing to get better at the game, then, like... Well, guess what you gotta do? Every single top player was once a low-level player in the same position as you. And if you think they didn't get better from playing people who are better than you, then I don't know what to tell you. Every single one of these top players you watch right now started getting their ass kicked in low-level lobbies. Every single one of them. It doesn't matter what name you see on this screen, I want you to know every single person started like that. And if you're not willing to consistently put yourself in a situation where you're going to get demolished, then you're not going to improve as fast. And if that's fine with you, if that's not the experience you want, then great, that's fine. If you want to get better, then, like, the fastest way possible, then there you go. Are people afraid of getting resulted? I don't know. I understand some dislike for it, but it's like, at the end of the day, like, I don't care. I'm here to be a better player. If I have to play a tournament and place, like, 9th place in, like, 80 tournaments to get one first place tournament, then I will do it. Because I'm not going to care about the other 9th place tournaments. Like, let me use myself as an example. I can't name any of my Dreadringer tournament runs where I didn't place well. Like, I had plenty of them, but I literally don't remember them. I don't remember what the tournament name is called. I don't remember who I lost to. I don't remember any of it. I do remember that I won, like, in the zone 39 or something. I do remember that I won Ludi. I remember that we beat, like the Gray Zera's group in a bracket reset. I remember those. It's like, that's something I always try to say if you're worried about the losses, if you're worried about feeling shit, is like, you're probably not even going to be thinking about it one day later. You're probably going to forget about it. But you will remember all the good experiences that you have. You are going to remember those, so, like, why not suffer through the bad experiences and get the good ones? A team that, like, spends 2 years winning no tournaments and wins it at the end will remember that tournament win forever. But, like, obviously you have to enjoy losing tournaments for 2 years to do that. And, like, if you don't, then don't do it. But, like, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but the majority of tournaments you're going to play in if you're trying to win are going to be losses. There's no way around it. That's just how getting better works. Like, you're just going to deal with it, no matter what. But yeah, that's about all I have to say right now, I think. I didn't have too much for this topic. It's just... I think people need to... I guess moral of the story, I think people need to be more okay playing in environments that aren't comfortable. I think people need to practice making the game harder for them, and need to practice trying to get more out of games where they are stomping. I feel like people can always learn more, and a big part to getting better is just being more efficient with the situations you are put in. So, like... You know, if you have a scrim you stomp, still find a way to learn from it. If you have a scrim you get stomped, find a way to learn from it. If you feel like you're too comfortable all the time you're playing the game and you're not learning anything, then make it uncomfortable. Like, make it hard, right? That's it. It's like very much customizable to your own experience, and you have to figure out how to make that experience somewhere where you will learn. That's it for my ramble.